listening to the First City Lax podcast, brought to you every week from the Florida Panhandle. Coach John and Coach JP explore the best and worst of lacrosse on the Gulf Coast. So strap your helmets on and let's go.
And welcome back to First City Lacrosse. I am your host, Coach John. As always, my co-host, JP, and we are the second greatest lacrosse podcast on the planet. And we have a very special guest with us today. He is a Georgia Lacrosse Hall of Famer, a former USA Lacrosse Executive Director, and he has been instrumental in standing up lacrosse in the Southeast area. Lou Corsetti, welcome, sir.
Thank you, John.
Glad to have you here.
Awesome. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So grew up on Long Island, and I always thank my old baseball coach for cutting me from baseball. And I didn't know what I was going to do next, having played football and wrestled. And so I asked my dad to send me to lacrosse camp when I was 12 or 13, going on 13, and went to Stroudsburg lacrosse camp. And Eamon McEnany, who was a great player at Cornell, was one of the camp counselors. So he kind of like took me under his wing a little bit because I was kind of new to the sport, and, made our junior high school team, and then played 4 years of high school, and then went off to play football and lacrosse at Marist College, and worked in Manhattan for Smith Barney, and played club ball for the New York Athletic Club and Mamaroneck Lacrosse Club. And then my wife and I moved to Georgia in 1990, played 2 years of club ball. And then me and a gentleman by name of Doug Horn, who's the Long Island native. Doug is really big. He's the one that started the South East Lacrosse Conference for MCLA teams, and ran that for many, many years. And Doug and I started Atlanta Youth Lacrosse in 1992 with 22 kids. And it then morphed into this giant thing, as I was telling you earlier, John, before we started the podcast. We thought we'd have a team in every town, and we did. And then the kids graduated out of our program in 8th grade, and they went to 6 local high schools in Georgia around the Atlanta metro area. And that's how high school lacrosse got started, because those kids went to their athletic director or principal, and they were like, "Where's the lacrosse team?" And they were like, "We don't even know what that is." And so 6 high schools got started. Then in 2003, it became a sanctioned sport in Georgia with about, I think it was 35 girls teams and 32 boys teams. And now, there's probably well over 100 teams playing in the state of Georgia, down, in Macon, over in Savannah. Most of it is centered around Metro Atlanta. And I retired from Smith Barney and took a year off. And my son Gordon, who worked for US Lacrosse, he was the head of officials training. And he said, "Dad, you should check out this position that opened up." And it's been 8 years this August 1st that I've been with US Lacrosse. I've been with them as a volunteer in many different capacities, the Georgia Lacrosse chapter, president of that for several years, and executive committee, as you mentioned, John. I was on the youth council for about 12 years, because at that time, US Lacrosse maybe had about 30 employees. So they really, really leaned into volunteers to help them with things. And then I was on the convention committee for about 10 years, getting the youth coaches for the youth track of the convention, and worked with a lot of college coaches and high school coaches, getting them to speak at the convention. So that's kind of it. I usually tell people, especially kids, they're like, "Coach, did you play?" And I said, when I played, I was a who's who. Then I stopped playing, I was a who's he. And now that I coach, I'm a who cares.
That's right. That's sometimes what it feels like. But the ones that know us are the ones that care the most. That's good enough for me sometimes. I think one thing that our listeners need to understand specifically is that if they are a player in pretty much anywhere in the Southeast, but specifically in our area and in sort of the Alabama and the Florida Panhandle areas, you
Panhandle.
Yeah, you are one of the main reasons they have a program. And that's something that I know I've personally thanked you for it, and I'll just do it publicly here as well. Thank you for helping us stand up our program. You were always the guy that you're the reason that even my boys had the opportunity to play. So I appreciate that.
No, thank you very much.
Thank
It's an
you.
honor to be out there and love being around the kids. I'm a coaching nerd like you guys,
Mm-hmm.
constantly reading anything about coaching because I think one of the things I like to opine on is, being a transformational coach versus a transactional coach. I know everybody likes to win and
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot, but at the end of the day, parents usually ask me, "Hey, coach, how's the team going to be this year?" And I've been coaching high school for a long time. I just tell them, look, I'll tell you in 10 years. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, look, I want to make sure these guys are good, solid citizens and
Mm-hmm.
husbands and fathers, and
Yeah.
that's when you made a mark. And so that's kind of, what I always like to do. I'm actually going to Augusta next Thursday to do a coaching clinic and then work with their kids because I just love doing that. Anything I can impart, and I usually actually learn more from the questions that I get from people.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you said it, transformational versus transactional. That is such a big part of it, I think. And I mean, you're definitely the expert on it. And it's something that when you're in the weeds in coaching and your players are fighting for every ground ball, and it's very easy sometimes, I think, to become transactional versus focusing on the big picture. Winning is great, losing can provide a lot of lessons, but if you do not create an environment as a coach, I think, where your player can succeed outside of the white lines, then I will say you failed as a coach. I mean, that's you completely missed the boat. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, and I'm actually reading this book. I got about 3 chapters left by Coach
yeah.
K, and it's
Okay.
called Leading with the Heart. And almost every person that was kind
Mm-hmm.
of part of the book, all of his ex-players,
Yeah.
they all said the same thing about the guy. Like yes, he's hard,
Mm-hmm.
but he really cares about everybody. And that's a good thing. And it's a little bit easier, I'm sure, in basketball because you don't have as many players, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still really good reading. I learned a lot from it. And I'm kind
Yeah.
of like a John Wooden disciple. Uh, and, a lot of things that he says sticks. It's
Mm-hmm.
funny because you guys coach as well, but kids that you coach, 8, 9, 10 years ago, you go into their weddings and they're
Mm-hmm.
saying quotes that you used to say. A lot of them are coaching or officiating now. I actually lost in the Elite Eight this year to 2 kids that played for me and coached for me. Now, they're 32-year-old men. But it was cool because they won the state championship. And, you couldn't be more proud of
Yeah.
somebody that kind of came through your program.
I say that to the players we coach as youth all the time because they often disperse to other high schools. And so JP and I will tell them, look, just because I want to win doesn't mean I want you to lose. Like I still want you to play really well. I'm going to try to beat you. You know what I mean? But also if you beat me, then you beat me. Like, and congratulations. I'm going to be so proud of you when that happens. So it's that's, I think, the player development part of it versus the transactional coaching.
No,
It's like
without
when
a
you lose, I'm
doubt.
gonna shake your hand. You know what I mean? Like I'm still gonna shake your hand. I'm still gonna smile at you, win or lose. So, that's how we all end up within the field anyway.
No, you're absolutely right. And, we're going through conditioning right now. We go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And,
Mm-hmm.
I've been telling them 2 things. Are you spending time or are you investing time?
Well,
Because
that's good.
if you're spending time, you're probably watching TV or playing Xbox or whatnot. And are you investing time? Whatever it is, maybe a kid that likes to play the piano, but you can't play the piano once a week if you want to, get good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing with your time?
Yeah.
So I'll take time to make time. That's what I like to say.
Yeah.
You know,
All right. So we know what book you're reading. What podcast are you listening to? Anything that our viewers should be listening to besides us, the second greatest lacrosse
I
podcast on the
really,
planet?
I don't listen to a ton of podcasts, but I do listen to several. Coach Tillman, not Coach Tillman, Coach of Virginia. That was name
Tiffany?
just went. Thank you. I apologize.
Yeah.
He does a lot of things on Inside Lacrosse, and then
Mm-hmm.
Vinny Sombrato has a pretty good podcast out there. And most recently, I did a podcast with a guy that replaced me at another school that I was at, and then went on to be a college coach. And now he's back here doing high school lacrosse. So he has the Georgia lacrosse report, which they're probably maybe 6 months ahead of you guys.
Okay. Well, we'll catch up to him quick, hopefully.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Man, well, listen. What about you're coaching now at which high
Fellowship
school?
Christian School.
Fellowship Christian School, and that's in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're doing
this is my 5th year there.
okay, and you're doing conditioning. So, what kind of things are you looking forward to? What kind of things are you prepping your players for?
Well, it's a great question because preparation is a large part of coaching. So I always script our first 2 weeks of practice. So I already have that done, what we want to go through. The first 2 days, technically, we have to have a tryout, but we keep everybody, I don't cut kids. I don't think if a kid wants to be on the team, they're going to be on the team. And, we're a small school too, so we have to share athletes. One of my best players just just signed with North Carolina to play football, but he's also a track athlete, and sometimes he has to miss. And I'm like, look, do your thing. That's fine. When you're out here, do the best you can and be a good teammate. So, so I script our first 2 weeks of practice to make sure that I get everything in before the season starts. And then, we do a lot of similar drills that a lot of people do. I like to break it up a good bit. One of the best things I think we do, which I got from Coach Petramala at Hopkins, it's nothing earth-shattering, but after you do your dynamic stretch or plyo stretch, whatever you call it, we go right into 3-on-2 with tennis balls just to get the kids' heart rate up. You're not peppering your goalies with rubber, and you're communicating or having a conversation on defense, and you got to develop soft hands to catch a tennis ball and pass a tennis ball. So we do that for 10 minutes every day. I've been doing that probably 15 years now. And it's a great way to get the kids excited. And then, depending on like when the season starts, you're scouting games and watching film and things like that. But, we like to do up-tempo dynamics. The kids know we don't do sprints because our practices are really up-tempo. And when we do a water break, I have them all sprint to go get water. And they all got to get there on time. And then we're right into the next drill because I believe you can get your conditioning in your drills. And I'm sure you guys played for coaches before where, great practice, guys, awesome job, get on the line. And you can just see the whole team get deflated. Philosophically, maybe it's not the best, but I've never had a team be gassed at the end of the game. And I've coached at, some bigger schools where we had more players, and the last 12 years, smaller schools. So these kids get it. And, if they're not jazzed up that day, I just bring them all in and I said, fellas, let's refocus. And they get the message loud and clear. So now my assistant coaches, sometimes they get angry because, the kids are messing up and they want to like punish them with sprints. But there's one thing that I do that's kind of funny because we have non-negotiables when we play, like picking up a ground ball with one hand in traffic. I don't care. I don't care if you pick it up with one hand, when you're by yourself and nobody's within 20 yards of you. I'm okay. But in traffic, so if they do it, the entire team, I'll hit the whistle or they just do it on their own and they get down and they do one push-up just because it's a pain in the neck. And I had a kid that wound up going to play Georgetown, great player, and he did it in a game. He picked up a ground ball one hand, got it checked out of the stick, and forgot where he was and did a push-up in the middle of the game.
I would have loved to have seen that. But you know what that means? That means he was coached effectively because
I believe
it
so.
was muscle memory.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I'm gonna start doing that, JP. We might have to start incorporating that rule because I think it's a very common mistake, but gosh, it's infuriating.
Yeah. No, it is. And it's a fast game, and I want
Mm-hmm.
the kids to be creative. I don't do a
Mm-hmm.
lot of set plays. I may
Yeah.
have a set play off the end line or something like that. Man
Mm-hmm.
up, you have plays, but the rest of the time, I want the kids to be creative. And,
Yeah.
one of the toughest things to coach is moving without the ball
Mm-hmm.
and finding the 2-on-1, because
Yeah.
that to me is the key to lacrosse. If you can
Mm-hmm.
understand how to find the 2-on-1, you're going to be pretty successful. And the other non-negotiable that we have is when you pick the ball up off the ground, you got to move it twice because
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to find the soft side of the defense. And
Mm-hmm.
that even goes for our poles. They pick up
Yeah.
a ball in traffic, they get it, and they're looking upfield right away
Mm-hmm.
to move the ball twice.
Yeah. Yeah, we do something similar. We don't tell them, right away move the ball twice, but we will focus them immediately. Like as soon as you pick the ball up, you should be looking downfield. That's your first look. It's always down. Then it's the next level up, and then it's somebody adjacent. But like you said, it's a fast game.
Yeah, and we play a thing that I call hippo.
Mm-hmm.
Started in our youth program many years ago. We didn't allow you to rake the ball. If you
Mm-hmm.
did, it was a turnover. And it was an internal league with about 4 teams at each age level, upwards of, 200 or 300 kids, depending on the year. And they really get it. And then the other thing is moving the ball within 4 seconds. And you're talking little kids
Mm-hmm.
in most cases, 12 and under. But they then started getting it, even though they didn't catch it every time, but they understood. Our refs were trained because we used a lot of high school kids to
Mm-hmm.
officiate. They would go 1001, 1002, 1003. Well, if I'm standing next to JP and he's defending me and I don't have the ball and I hear the ref go, 3 1000, I better get open because it's going to be a turnover going the
Mm-hmm.
other way. And we only did it in fall ball
Mm-hmm.
because once they got the spring, they kind of knew what was going on. But
Mm-hmm.
that's a great way. The kids love it. Even my high school kids, we'll do it for 15 minutes
Mm-hmm.
at the end of practice. You got to move the ball.
Yeah. We'll do something similar for, like our man up drills, like our
Hmm.
5v4 or 6v5 type stuff. We'll tell the offense, you should, in 2 seconds, that ball needs to be in and out of your stick. So 2 seconds is plenty of time to catch the ball, scan the defense, find your offensive player, look for the skip pass, and then either move it adjacent to try to figure out who the slow slide's going to be. And then you don't have to hold it because again, when you're holding the ball too long, you're giving the defense a chance to reset every single time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
What I
something
like to
we
see as a
did that,
coach is if you see a player get the ball and you can watch him think about what he's going to do. Like he's going to stop and resets. To me, that's one of the greatest moments of coaching because he's actually thinking about what you guys have taught him to do. When you're moving the ball, like literally stop, reset, get rid of the ball.
yeah,
That's what you're supposed to do.
something I incorporated about 10 years ago with man up and man down is I try to make it more game like. So we may do a drill and then I hit the whistle and we go right into man up, man down. And the guys that are on the man up and man down team, they get to where they got to go. And the rest of the team goes and does another drill and knows. And we have a couple extra guys, just so they know what's going on defense and offense. But we do man up, man down for 5 minutes. And then we go to the next drill and then maybe water. And so we break it up. So I do 4 man up 5-minute sessions every practice once we get through the first 2 weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more game like. And that because you got to concentrate a little bit more. Because at the end of practice, if you do a man up, man down for 10 minutes or whatever, 20 minutes, the defense knows what you're doing. And our kids now, they're smart enough. They have like hand signals.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not yelling from the sideline, run, flip flop or something like that. They know what they want to do. So they
Mm-hmm.
have hand signals and I may only say, what do you guys like? Especially in a game. And then, they'll tap their head and that's going to be bingo or something like that, whatever name we
Right.
call the play. And, doing that 5-minute intervals throughout the practice, you get 4 man ups, you get 20 minutes of it. We usually put out 10 balls and
Mm-hmm.
they I'll do things like if the offense doesn't score, I said, okay, fail. And they keep score
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes a little bit of a competition.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I
It
hope
really
the
keeps the
coaches
game
Take
like.
listening.
notes. I promise you.
Yeah, no, I
I
mean
hope the coaches listening are paying attention. This is words of wisdom from someone who's been around this game a long time. So, can we go back to your scripted practices? So, you said you script out the first 2 weeks.
Mhm.
What do those first 2 weeks look like? How do you structure that?
Well, again, I said that we technically have to have a tryout. So I tell the coaches for the first 2 days, we're not coaching. Now, the kids that know the drills that have been around for us, like some people call it the Maryland drill, I call it add one. So it's just a drill where you have, attack and defense on both sides of the field, and all your middies are, at the sideline. And you usually get some kid that wants to be a hero and impress the coach. So he'll step up first and he doesn't realize what he just signed up for. So I roll the ball out, he picks it up, and it's a 4-on-3 going this way. We got a bunch of balls in each cage. Goalie makes a save. The next midfielder is coming on to like the wing area, and the goalie has to hit him. That kid that came on offense first now has to get back to the hole, and it's a 4-on-4. Goalie makes the save or a shot, and the next guy's going. So now it's a 5-on-4 going this way. So they're going back and forth. So that first guy out, who thinks he's a hero, is gassed by the end of it. But it's a great drill. The kids that know the drills and have been around with, when we yell the 54 drill, they know exactly what we're doing. They all get into it, or add one or sevens or whatever the drill is that I call. And we give them the practice plan. We use Group Me. I post the practice plan. Unfortunately, our school doesn't have a locker room. It's in another, it's across the street in a shopping plaza where the weight room is and all that stuff. So they don't really have a locker room. So you can't post it in the locker room. So we put it on Group Me. But I try to work from that 10th day backwards, and that's when we put up. We do 2-a-days on the first 2 weeks of the season. So we have 5 practices. Then we do 2-a-days on Saturday. Then 5 practices, 2-a-days on that Saturday, and we usually end that second Saturday with a blue and white scrimmage because that's our colors. And the parents come and they have the barbecue and all that kind of stuff. But so, I have all the drills set and they kind of know what they have to do. I'm happy to share this with both of you if you want me to.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
It helps me stay organized. And when I came to fellowship, I could have brought my staff from the other school, but I didn't think that was right to take my entire staff of 4 other coaches. And they had a staff, but they were all football guys. But they've done great. Like a defensive coordinator on football is our defensive coordinator. In lacrosse, I have a face-off guy, I have a goalie coach. But their kids played, but they never played. So they kind of learn a little bit. And there's a couple of drills that they have that they like to. So I always incorporate that. One of my coaches, Todd Cochran, whose son played at Reinhardt, and they played in the national championship and lost to Kaiser the year before. But I use some of their drills. Like we have this thing called Coach Todd's Playground, which is this really tough ground ball drill that you do for about 7 minutes, and it works these guys pretty hard on picking up ground balls and fighting through checks and things like that. So, and
I would love to get my hands on your drill book one of these days.
No, I'm happy I'll send it to you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, because as coaches, especially on the development side, which is most of this region is still in the developing stages. We don't have too many well-established programs. You got a few. Yeah, just JP, I know he has always been interested in the development side of it and how to work with that, right, JP?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we work a lot on fundamentals. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this, but because the kids are all over Instagram and Facebook, not Facebook, YouTube, they see, Rob Pennell doing something, and it's fine to do it, but I try to explain to them when you're fundamentally sound, I don't mind you taking, making a pass side on because that's the only option you have. But, usually if you're fundamentally sound with, your stick up here and you're following through properly and things like that, and you're giving a guy a target when you're catching the pass, you're going to be more successful. And I've seen over the last several years, the fundamentals are really like gone downhill. And some of that comes from the club portion. Some club teams do a great job of it, but others, it's like we're playing games, and then, that's good for lacrosse IQ to play games. But at the end of the day, we like to keep things in small blocks. So, we'll do a thing that I call tic-tac-toe, which is how to find the 2-on-1. And, if you're coaching youth kids, I call it the black hole, that kid that gets the ball and you never see it again because he's more athletic than the other kids and he runs up the field, but he never really learns how to play the game the right way. And that's why we do things like Hippo, because that kid has to pass the ball. If you're 12 years old, you can't run 70 yards within 4 seconds. You may be able to get to the top of the box. So that's another reason why we incorporate that. The two things that I mentioned earlier, finding the 2-on-1 and how to play without the ball.
Yeah.
But you'll eventually get it back if you're a good player.
Well, and I think that's the way the game should be played. I think it's not supposed to be, it's not supposed to be Michael Jordan or LeBron James or Kobe Bryant. And I think even those guys would tell you, it's like, no, it's a team sport. Like, I happen to be the guy with the ball, but it's a team sport. It's just everyone has a role to play. We're coming close to the end of our time, but I want to turn some time over to JP real quick. I know he had a question or two for you, so I want to make sure he gets a chance to learn from one of the best here.
I'm going to throw a couple in there. It's not really anything big, but so tell us about the first time you picked up a stick and just got obsessed with the game ever since. We want to know about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, where I grew up on the island, my side of town was a baseball kind of town. My dad was my little league coach, and all my brothers played baseball. I'm the only one that played football and wrestled. But I always had a stick around. There were a couple of kids that were older in our neighborhood. The other side of town is where all the lacrosse players were from. And so that's, I had a stick in my hand, but it wasn't like, I was playing more baseball than it was lacrosse. And I always believed, and I'm sure you guys have seen this, anytime a kid picks up a stick, something magical happens. And so to me, that's what I think is always going to happen, even though I know that's not true because some parents sign kids up to expose them to something and, they may or may not like it. But, most of the kids stick around, which is good, provided that they're getting good coaching, the coaches care about them and they're positive and encouraging. Because I'm sure we all played for coaches that, they give you the 10,000-yard death stare or they're yelling and screaming. And, you start yelling at kids, you already lost them because it's in one ear, out the other. Nobody likes to get yelled at. Now, you could raise your voice like, hey, move the ball or, get it to X or whatever. But, you got to give the kids a little bit more credit and let them discover things. So, and then, obviously I had a really good high school career and got recruited to play football and lacrosse at several places, but all the places that wanted me to play football didn't want me to play lacrosse and vice versa. I was 170 pounds at the time. And at that time, I thought I was going to go into the NFL until I discovered there's not many 5'10", 175-pound guys playing in the NFL.
Right.
Yeah, it took off for me. I really love the sport, but I also love the change in seasons, going from football to wrestling, then lacrosse. Some kids are football, basketball, lacrosse, some play soccer. I'm not sure. Is it a spring sport in Florida, soccer or fall? Yeah.
No, soccer is
in the fall.
It's more of a fall winter sport.
Yeah, and I think that's too. Yeah, no, definitely hockey players. I love hockey players. And
you wouldn't think that here, but we do. We got a few.
Yeah, and they're great. Those kids know how to dig the ball up. That's for sure.
Yeah,
and basketball players are great because I always tell people, lacrosse is nothing more than basketball with sticks. So, and I didn't need, I played church league basketball, but we basketball, we do that every now and then. In the mid-season when the kids are getting a little dinged up, we're like, hey, we're playing basketball today. And, they have a blast, playing basketball. That help, JP?
Yeah. So another thing, this is a really good question. We ask anybody. So looking back on your younger self, being a coach or a player, what's some advice that you would, as yourself now, give to your younger self as a coach or player? It doesn't matter. Or what would you
From
do
a
differently?
coaching standpoint, Yeah, from a coaching standpoint, because I was coached more in football from some guys that were kind of scary, even though I know they cared about us. And so I was a bit of a yeller when I first started because I didn't know much. But I worked with Coach AC at the University of Farmingdale, which was a junior college, and I learned a lot from him. He went off to Air Force Academy and was there for many years. So, from a coaching standpoint, I think you change over time. But if I was able to do it again, I'd be reading everything about John Wooden that I possibly can, because he just has some great ways of interacting with kids, but also understanding that it is a team sport. We're all in it together, and stay positive. One of the things that I'm actually working on, I'm waiting to get it trademarked, is vitamin P, meaning let's be positive. And so I'll say, hey, that guy needs some vitamin P over there, and the kids will pick him up, and it sounds corny, but, it kind of sticks with kids. From a player standpoint, JP, because I didn't have a lot of people in our neighborhood, there was an auto parts store about 4 houses from where I grew up. And I played wall ball every day for a half hour minimum. And I remember my dad, I was, 2 years into college, and my dad asked me to go to the auto parts store and get something from him. And I saw this little kid playing wall ball. And I walked inside to the store, and all you heard was da-dun, da-dun, da-dun on the wall. And I asked the guy, because he was the owner, he knew me. And I'm like, how did you put up with that for 6 years, 7 years, whatever it was, playing wall ball every day, even when I came home from practice? So, and kids don't know how to play wall ball. They say they do. And, we as coaches, as a trainer for USA Lacrosse, when I do training sessions, I ask the coaches, I said, what do you guys do when the season ends? And there's dead silence. So I have to prompt them. I'm like, do you ask the kids to play wall ball every day? Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Ask them to do maybe speed and agility. Ask them to play for a summer travel team. They're like, yeah. I said, okay, so if you're asking the kids to do this, what are you doing to get better as a coach? And that's one of the reasons why I read so much about leadership and things like that, because you pull lots of nuggets out there from everybody. And, we all steal from each other, but it's more borrowing. And a lot of the stuff that you guys will see when I send it to you is drills that you probably saw before, and maybe some that you hadn't, and they're just, good to mix it up. You do your standard drills, you do your individual work, like I don't do shooting drills anymore. I call them scoring drills, because I want to get the kids in their mindset. I'm trying to score every time I shoot in a shooting drill. So we call them scoring drills. And the kids know that, because I want them, if you're taking 50 shots in our 20-minute session, I want you to hit at least 40,
Yeah.
especially when there's no goalie in the cage.
Yeah.
So those are, I guess, JP, are two of the things is, wall ball is the name of the game. Obviously, you're an athlete. You got to eat correctly. You got to get enough sleep. You got to do really, 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 really great in school, because if you can't do the work in school, you're probably not going to be on the field.
No.
And I'm
It's a
blessed
big, big
I've coached
difference.
at some really good schools where they emphasize college. Two of them were private schools, or four of them were private schools, and one of them was a public school. And these kids are all solid citizens now, the majority of them, they're all doing really well. It's always good to see.
Yeah, well, that definitely answers my questions. I appreciate it.
All right, well, Coach, I know you got I know you got more work to do, so we will go ahead and cut this off for now. But listen, I appreciate you so much. Thank you once again for joining us. This has been amazing, and I hope, like I said before, I hope our listeners understand exactly what they're getting when they get the chance to listen to you talk. So quickly, just last things real quick. If people want to get in touch with you, how do they find you?
They can send me an email or call my cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
It's Corsetti at USA Lacrosse, or they can use my me account. It's just Corsetti007 at me.com, and my cell is
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. It sounds like JP's dog appreciates it too. Listen, we are going to let you go, but thank you so much, everybody. Make sure you keep tuning in. You're going to get more amazing nuggets like this. Probably not any of this good, but listen, be a good human, get your reps in, play wall ball, and we will see you all next time.
I appreciate it.
If you like what you hear, drop us a like and follow wherever you downloaded this podcast from, and on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at First City Labs. Check back every week for more content. Thank you for being a part of the First City Lacrosse podcast.